Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas. I know mine was very quiet, but the food was very good, and I'm happy about that. I got a few interesting gifts, most of which I gave to myself, but that's okay. I mentioned this before. I really enjoy playing with blowguns. They're pipes that you blow darts out of. And I think they're just really great exercise for the lungs. They're also really good exercise for the brain. And they're just plain fun to use. So a few months ago, I went to the hardware store and I got a piece of aluminum conduit. I can't remember the exact length of it. It comes to, I don't know. I'm going to say it's 6 feet long because it comes about to my eyebrow. I'm 6'4". I don't know. And I had trouble finding darts to match it. I tried making various darts and with different cone styles and such. And you can look on YouTube and such. You can find out how to do that. You can do a pretty good job. But, I mean, homemade darts are rarely perfectly accurate. I mean, it takes a lot of precision really to make the cone. The dart itself can be made from anything from a nail to a bicycle spoke to, piano wire, music wire, whatever, spring, steel. I think it goes by different names depending on the thickness of it. Really, those little striders or spiders, sometimes they're called, that hold up insulation under a house are fantastic. They're all good, but it's the cones, the part that actually builds the pressure behind it when you blow the dart out, that's really hard to get exactly right. You can take plastic and mold it. You can take paper and do it in like a cone and do a little glue in there. You can get, let's say, within 85 to 90% of perfection. I've never been just really happy with homemade darts. Now, of course, you can go really old school with it and wrap the end in like cotton or something. Cherokee used wooden darts, of course, with a plant fiber, sort of like, for all I know, I really ought to look into see what they used. Maybe a milk thistle or something. It was really a cottony type substance. I don't think it would be cattail. I'm not sure, but I will try to look into that. And those are good. Those can be very, very accurate. They're also messy and everything. So anyway, one of the things I found myself was some .625, I believe is the caliber, blowgun darts. Yeah, they were decent price, a little pricey, but for the number you got and the quality. And anyway, I finally got the conduit out, and I wrapped it in some old black electric tape, and I found some end caps to go over it. And actually ended up using the caps off of a couple old empty glue sticks. They fit perfectly. And my word, if I had fun with this thing. I mean, 30 yards. I mean, I could probably hit. I could probably put about 7, 8, 10, 12 darts in this something about the size of the diameter of a baseball at 30 yards away. And it hits so hard. I mean, these darts are such quality. They're just punching like straight through boards. It's pretty fairly amazing. So, that's fun to do and it's good for you. And I found that piece of conduit is actually pretty tough and strong. So I started doing the old, I used to study Kung Fu when I was younger. Silam Kung Fu, the real stuff, not the movie and TV style of Kung Fu. In fact, the guy I learned from was a deputy sheriff in the county where I grew up. And he had actually gone to China in his late teens. He had terrible, celiac disease, colitis, something in that category. And Western medicine had no cure for him whatsoever. He talked with a guy who had some experience with Chinese herbal medicine and said, if anybody can help you with this, it's going to be the Shaolin monks in China. See if you can get a visa to go and stay for 6 months or a year. And he did. And Chinese herbal medicine literally saved his life. I mean, he started putting on weight and, digesting his food better. And eventually he started studying Chinese herbal medicine and legit Silam Kung Fu and real Tai Chi Chuan and all that. Just a local guy from the mountains of North Carolina came back, Grand Master, actually. I think at this point he was just a master and like around 20 years old. He's now a Grand Master. One of the, let me tell you, you watch those movies like Steven Seagal or Chuck Norris, they do not want to run into this guy. I mean, so much of that stuff is so, flashy. Chuck Norris is a little better than most of us, but you think about Seagal or Jean-Claude Van Damme or these guys. Really, the only one I would compare this, white dude from the mountains of North Carolina to would be Jackie Chan without the gymnastics. He's not flipping around and running up walls and doing all that, but he probably could if he wanted to. Dude is freaking scary when it comes to fighting. But I learned a lot about traditional Chinese medicine from him. And, so that was a big part of what helped form me as an herbalist. But when I was in my late teens, early 20s, it was the back injuries that really put an end to it. So I'm going to go with more late teens. I was paralyzed for almost 2 years when I was right around 20 years old. So I'm going to go with late teens. I went and got to train and study with him. And I really enjoyed using the bow staff. And so this 6-foot piece of conduit wrapped in black electric tape has gotten me kind of back into that, and it feels really good. This is, I think, one of my New Year's resolutions is going to be to get back into some martial arts practice and keep the target practice going, keep my lungs good and strong using that. I think it'll make a big difference, actually. And, I would encourage anyone to look into really both traditional forms of martial arts where you have these set exercises you do, which you might call a form. That's why I keep using the word form. They're good exercise. It's good to know self-defense. One of the best ways you can defend yourself is actually with a walking cane, just a plain old wooden walking cane, like you would use if like I used a year or two ago when I blew out my knee. It's one of the most devastating weapons there is. There's actually a long martial arts history both in China and Korea using a walking cane for self-defense. It's easy. It's really probably the easiest weapon to use. It's one of the most devastating weapons you can use. I mean, seriously. And not only was it popular in Asia, but there was a French and an English and I believe a German school of self-defense right around 1800, where gentlemen would use their walking sticks much as they would have used a fencing sword. What do you call that? Epee. that was part of their training back then with a sword, but, it was illegal to walk around the street with a sword. You could walk around with a cane or a walking stick. And it was more of a jousting style, but they would also use the hook or crook of the cane to like jerk somebody's foot out from under them or grab them around the neck and flip them. I mean, it was, pretty tough stuff. And then, of course, in Ireland and Scotland, there's a long tradition of stick fighting. The shillelagh, especially in Ireland, well, the English outlawed the Irish from owning swords. So what they did is they went and made these really tough walking sticks and learned to use them against people with swords and often win the battle. So I would highly recommend you look into that. Don't worry about carrying a cane and thinking it makes you look old or weak. Sometimes it's not a bad thing. It's just a good thing to be underestimated. Most people are not going to notice. Literally, you can just hang it, the crook, just hang it on your arm and walk around with it. You're not leaning on it, and most people don't even notice you have it. The great benefit is that under our laws, HIPAA laws and such as that, you can carry that cane anywhere. You can carry it on an airplane. You can take it into a courthouse. I think I'd have to check, but they have to give you some accommodation even in prison. And under the laws, no one can ask your medical reason for having that cane. It is literally a deadly weapon you can carry anywhere in the United States. Full open carry. Now, it's got to be a cane with a crook. A straight stick is actually banned in New York State as a weapon because of all the Irish immigrants that came in there that used to carry their shillelaghs. That's true in several states. I don't know, probably Massachusetts. I don't know. That's another one that get a lot of Irish immigration, so I would guess. But a regular cane with a crook, the hook on the top that you hold on to, is considered a medical device, and no one can even ask you why you're carrying it, much less prevent you from carrying it into a federal building or on an airplane or anything like that. So I would absolutely recommend you looking into that. But like I said, the blowgun's so good for your lungs. I used to play trumpet when I was a kid. I hated it. It gave me a headache. I can go out and practice with a blowgun for hours and just enjoy it, and it doesn't give me a headache, and it really does increase lung capacity. And after all the respiratory viruses have been going around the past couple of years, I think it's something you might want to look into just for fun. You don't have to go hunting with it, which I of course would. You don't have to use it for self-defense, which I might if pressed. But just for fun, you can set up, and I've mentioned this in several shows before. You can get a smaller one. There are a lot of them online you can buy, or from little shops that break down into little pieces. They fit in a pouch. They have extensions. You take them out, and it's a much more narrow tube, and it shoots smaller darts. And you can put a dartboard on your wall, or just a cardboard box, and just sit there while you're watching television, and just. And you'd be amazed how much fun and how accurate you can get with it. It's absolutely remarkable. So anyway, I was so impressed by these darts that I bought from a seller on eBay. I went ahead and ordered a second batch of them that are heavier. They're not a pointed dart. They're more of a knockdown type dart. And I'm having a blast with this. On top of that, I got a Baofeng radio. It's a shortwave walkie-talkie kind of radio, and I've been playing around with that, picking up at least the weather channels and such. But that was another interest I wanted to get into this year, and just a good time. It's about to be the new year, but by the time you hear this show, it's probably gonna be either the day before New Year's. It's gonna be New Year's. The day before New Year's Eve, or New Year's Eve, or the New Year. It's a time to think, what would I like to do in this next year? And sometimes, you can have fun with it. One of the things I'm going to do is get back into playing tenor banjo. I've let that slide. My book has just been published on playing the mandolin. It's called Mandolin Mystery Solved on eBay. And so I can kind of close that chapter a little bit. And of course, each week I'll still be recording a video lesson for the mandolin and putting it on YouTube. If you haven't checked that out, I do that for both the mandolin and guitar. But, tenor banjo is something I kind of let slide the last couple of years while I was working on this mandolin book. So time to get into that. Um, you know, Beyond that, do a little more fishing, do a little more hiking. Um, yeah, there's another herb book or two I'm hoping and planning to write this year, and I should have announcements on that. But it's also a good time to begin planning your spring garden. Um, I think really the mistake that many people make is either trying to do too much or not realizing the potential of the amount of space they've got. So if you want to go to like an online mapping program, it can be anything from Google Maps to something more sophisticated. Get an aerial picture of your property. You should have the option to have this sort of like in line drawn form as well as satellite imagery. But gosh, there's so many sites that will do this for you now. Just play around with it and try to find one. Print that out if you can. If not, if you want to manipulate it online, it's up to you. I like to put it on a grid pattern. Now, compare the square footage of your house. You should know what the square footage of your house is. If not, go measure the length by the width of your house and multiply it by each side, by each other. There you go, and you get square footage. That'll give you an idea of how much square footage you have of space you can use, and really look at and evaluate it. Look at, where's my patio? Where's my driveway? What's my sun angle? This is all in my book, How to Grow Your Survival Herb Garden. It's also in Herbal Medicine for Preppers, Permaculture People, and Homesteaders and all that. Look at your sun angle. Figure out what parts of your yard get the most sun, which parts get the least sun. And you're looking at your summer sun angle, essentially. And evaluate. You may have a sunny wall you haven't even used. And maybe you could put a trellis up there. Maybe you could stack containers up there. Put up some lattice and hang containers off it. There's a million ways you can use a sunny wall. You may think about using part of your roof. Now, of course, you want to be careful with that. You don't want to damage your shingles, but yeah, you can put some container plants on your roof. Vines can certainly go up the side of a house. They can be trellised. Certain, bushes and fruit trees could be trained to do the same thing. Espalier and different ways of doing. Grapevines on trellises on a sunny wall is a no-brainer. You're going to get a ton of grapes off of that. And it's also going to cut down on your heating bills because it's going to shade that side of your house that's getting all that direct sun. You'll be amazed how much space you can find in your yard where you have areas that don't get a lot of sun, where it's shady, where it's damp. Again, my book on growing your survival herb garden tells you how much water certain medicinal herbs need. I didn't really at all get into, a few edible plants, but it's not really a vegetable grower's guide or a flower grower's guide. It's medicinals. You will find something that will grow in any spot in your yard. It may be a good place to plant mint because mint doesn't spread as readily where it doesn't get a full sun and where the ground's a little more damp. Or it could be a good place to plant a medicinal herb like cotunia, which is very antiviral, or alum root or huchera. That was the one I was trying to think of. They actually prefer that darker, damper area. Bugleweed will do just fine there. But remember, don't overdo either. We have a tendency to go like one extreme or the other. You want your garden to be easily accessible. Always prioritize walking paths. You never want to walk in your garden beds. Once you get the soil aerated and loose, you don't want to step on it. You want it to be easily waterable. You want it to be easily planted and harvestable. So when you're looking at that overview of your property, let's say, well, here's a good place for a bed. Now I'm going to want to reach in from this side maybe 3 feet, and from this side maybe 2 to 3 feet. So I'm going to put maybe a 5-foot wide bed here, and I'm going to put a 2-foot wide walking path in between. That's fine. You can make sure, a ton of planting space can be figured out on even like, a tenth of an acre if you're breaking it down by the square foot. I highly recommend that. I highly recommend vertical space. Even hanging pots and such from tree limbs or, however you need to do it. You can put arches over your driveway and do vining plants up those. I mean, you can do amazing things by utilizing vertical space in ways that maybe you haven't thought of before. But of course, the other side of that coin is to say, ooh, look at this. I have 10,000 square feet of plantable beds. I can actually access them. I'm going to order seeds and I'm going to grow 20,000 different plants spaced 6 inches apart. You can do that. If you make sure you follow your recommendations on how close things should be, you can absolutely do that. But it becomes overwhelming very quickly. When things are planted that intensely, especially if you're planning on, I'm going to have a spring crop, then I'm going to pull those and I'm going to put a summer crop, and then I'm going to pull those, and you could grow enough food on a very small space of property to absolutely satisfy all your needs. But if you do that, you're going to get very tired very quickly. It's going to become a chore. It's not going to be fun unless, you're retired or whatever, and you're really thinking, I'm going to spend 4 hours a day in my garden. This is going to be my recreation. This is going to be my exercise. That may work perfectly for you. And it really may, depending on your livelihood and life situation, I guess I would say. Not necessarily retired, but maybe, you're in a situation where you have the time and energy to devote to it. Maybe you can look at that and say, I'm going to be producing 4 times what I need. I'm going to share it with neighbors or even sell some of it. That would be a very good reason to devote that time. But if you're like many people and you've got a job or school and kids or taking care of an elderly parent or health issues or such, you're going to get really tired really quickly. You're going to have trouble keeping things weeded. With the intensive planting, usually insects are not as big of a problem, but it depends, again, on what hits you. You're going to have problems keeping everything watered or other areas dry enough. And when things start coming into harvest like crazy, like when you start getting tomatoes by the bushel every day and zucchini by like 5 bushels full a day, a lot of stuff's just going to go to waste and rot. And that's probably going to invite more varmints into your yard that will come to eat the rotten vegetables and will stay and eat your healthy plants, and it becomes a real pain, and you may get so sick of it you say, that's it, no more gardening for me. So you want to find that balance between what is the potential of what I can harvest here, what is the potential of how much water I'm able to collect my property. Can I put rain barrels under my, downspouts from my gutters and not have to spend a fortune on municipal water, which is usually chemical laden and you don't want to use it anyway? How much natural rainfall do I get in my area? How much natural sunlight do I have in my area? When's my first frost date? When's my last frost date? When you get all those calculations down, you can get a very good idea of your capacity for your land to grow food, and it's going to really blow you away. I mean, you could even add on to that like microgreens and stuff you can grow in windowsills and sprouts and all that you could actually grow inside, and grow lights. I mean, you'll be amazed how much food you can actually produce. If you have to buy all those seeds and you have to buy grow lights and pots and soil, you can be amazed how much it costs. But you got to strike the right balance between how much do I want to grow, how much am I able to grow, how much am I willing to spend in terms of time and money, and how much can I practically do. And most people, hit there somewhere right around the 50%, right in the middle on things, and find that they can grow enough food to be pretty much self-sufficient on really even a small piece of property. And even if all you had was a condo or an apartment, you can grow a lot of food actually in containers, or if you do things indoors. But don't go too far and don't underestimate either, because you're cheating yourself either way. So that's my spring gardening advice, and that's something you should absolutely be thinking about in January. Now let's look at a couple of medicinal vines. We are going to start with Burchimia. This is Burchimia scandens, also known as Supplejack. There's not a lot of information on this one. Peterson Field Guide to Eastern Central Medicinal Plants says American Indians use the bark or leaf tea as a blood purifier and to restore youthful vigor and sexual vitality. Tea of the burned stems was used for coughs. So you would think with this plant's properties there'd be a lot more information on it. Sorry, I haven't found it. If I do, I'll let you know. And the same is true of trumpet vine. I only have one entry on trumpet vine. It's from Plants for a Future. It said the root is diaphoretic and vulnerary, which means helps break a fever and heal wounds. Doesn't really tell us how it was used, and some trumpet vine varieties are quite toxic, so we're going to need to do some more research on that one before we start using it. The last one I'm going to mention to you, I have quite a bit more information on, thank goodness. It is Celastrus or Bittersweet. Now, this is an interesting, very interesting plant. Celastrus scandens, which is climbing bittersweet, is native to my region. There's also an oriental bittersweet, which is naturalized. It's actually, these two are false bittersweets. This is Celastrus, and I do want to make this differentiation because we will talk about proper bittersweet, the European version, later. That's a member of the Datura family. And the Datura family, like Jimson weed and henbane and others, quite hallucinogenic and quite dangerous. But the scandens, the climbing bittersweet, grows from Canada through the Carolinas. It's actually quite widespread and prolific. Usually creeps through hedges, twines around trees. It's great for basket weaving, by the way. It's one of the primary uses for it. And the root is very long and woody and has a bright orange color. That's one of the ways we identify it. Let's see. Look at King's Medical Dispensatory of 1898. They gave the chemical compositions. But then of actions, medicinal uses, and dosage, alterative, which means it can help bring you back to health. Diaphoretic means breaks a fever. Diuretic gets rid of excessive fluids. But it does have some narcotic powers. It was used in scrofula, syphilis, hepatic affections, it's liver issues, cutaneous affections, skin issues, leukorrhea, vaginal discharge, rheumatism, and for obstructed menstruation. Externally used as an ointment, was successfully employed in inflamed breasts of nurses, swelling of the vulva, burns, excoriations, etc. Plants for Future says of climbing bittersweet was employed medicinally by a number of native North American Indian tribes, though it is scarcely used in modern herbalism. The root is diaphoretic, diuretic, and emetic. That means it will actually make you throw up. It is a folk remedy in chronic liver and skin ailments, including skin cancer, rheumatism, leukorrhea, dysentery, and suppressed menses. A strong compound infusion, usually combined with raspberry leaf tea, has been used to reduce the pain of childbirth. Given this plant's potential toxicity, definitely think it's not a very good idea at all. A poultice of the boiled root has been used to treat obstinate sores, skin eruptions, etc. Externally, the bark is used as an ointment for burns, scrapes, skin eruptions. Extracts of the bark are said to be cardioactive, so it has an effect on the heart. Many plants of this genus contain compounds of interest for their anti-tumor activity. Very true. A lot of research is being done on that, but we don't really have a lot of results yet. The narcotic property of this plant is what they mean by cardioactive. It's going to slow the heart rate, and that's why it can be rather dangerous. But of the many members of this family, this one is one of the least toxic. So you will find it used. In fact, the herbalist Michael Moore was quite fond of bittersweet. Known hazards: the fruit is poisonous and all parts of the plant are potentially toxic. That is true. This is not an herb for beginners, okay? This is an herb you want to do your research on and probably not mess with unless you really know what you're doing. The Oriental, that's the one that's been introduced. They said the roots and stems are anti-rheumatic. Depurative means softening, tonic. Decoction of the roots and stems used internally, while the crushed leaves are used for external applications. Plant is used in treatment of paralysis, numbness of extremities, headache, toothache, spontaneous abscess formation, and for snake bites. They mention it may also have anti-tumor activity. We don't know. Peterson Field Guide for Eastern Central Medicinal Plants says the root bark tea induces sweating. It's diuretic and emetic, so it'll help break a fever or get rid of excess fluids and might make you throw up. Folk remedy for chronic liver and skin ailments, rheumatism, leukorrhea, suppressed menses. Externally, the bark used as an ointment for burns, scrapes, skin eruptions. American Indians use the plant as above and also use the leaf tea as an astringent for diarrhea and dysentery. Root bark was used for pain of childbirth. Bark extracts thought to be cardioactive. Now, interestingly, even though this plant is rather toxic, it does have a mention in the physician's desk reference for herbal medicine, but it's very brief. It says American Bittersweet has diuretic and diaphoretic effects. They don't even mention the potential toxicity. So, when I say that, of all the bittersweets, this one's probably the least toxic, it can still kill you if used improperly or taken in large doses, but the PDR didn't even think that was worth pointing out. So when it's one of those you're going to see listed as toxic, but it's not that dangerous. You just want to really do your research and remember my disclosure, my warning that runs at the end of every show, which you will be hearing in just a few seconds. Anyway, y'all, have a great last few days of the year. I wish you a wonderful new year, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.